Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Inside Story podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of building diverse businesses and becoming a successful entrepreneur. I'm your host, Dursun Halimova, a business coach and facilitator on a mission to help build impactful businesses. And today we are taking a sneak peek at RSS Hydro. It is an accredited private research institute based here in Luxembourg. RSS Hydro provides remote sensing and modeling of the environment, focusing on water risks. It is in my opinion, one of the few companies that really integrates the practical as well as academic experience and works on applied science in partnership with businesses, governments, and the community. And my guest today is Guy Schumann, or rather Dr. Schumann, who is the founder and CEO of RSS Hydro. Dr. Schumann has an extensive academic and research career in the UK, US, and Luxembourg. He has held Caltech postdoctoral research position with NASA, as well as associate researcher position at UCLA. Dr. Schumann has around 90 publications in the field of remote sensing, data migration with flood modeling, and he has received numerous awards for his achievement. Dr. Schumann, it's great to have you on the Inside Story podcast. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, Dursun. It's fantastic to be here. And thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, this is in fact my first time sitting with an academic who is also involved in the private sector. And this is amazing. I'm very excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, it's exciting for me too. I never imagined myself having a company or starting one, having come from the academia. So it's great to explain a little bit of this, how this happened.
Yeah, we would love to know more about that. To start off our conversation today, what I will do is read several unfinished sentences, and I would ask you to finish them for us, please.
Okay.
The first one, being an entrepreneur means
having a lot of hope. You need to hope, and you need to be ready to do a lot of things that you don't like to do.
Building an impactful business requires
hard work.
Failure is
normal.
Success is a result of
a lot of failures.
And the last one, being fulfilled in life means
just being happy and living simple.
Indeed, right? Like I think
I should be an entrepreneur, actually, in that sense. I should have said having a lot of money and making a luxurious living out of that, but that's not who I am. So.
Well, not every entrepreneurship is about becoming rich. Luckily, there are entrepreneurs like you who are more passionate about solving societal or environmental challenges, which are quite rewarding.
Yeah, and you got me on the hope kind of thing. I finished that first sentence with hope because actually you caught me when I'm still in that state of moving out of startup into like the SME world, standing on our own feet, so to say, as a business. And hope because actually we still need to hope that we'll make it big. So we kind of in that period where now it should be okay, but sometimes it's still not okay. So we still live on that hope angle. But it's hope that we do for ourselves, right? We push as much as we can and then hope for the best.
Indeed. I mean, things can go wrong or right any moment. You don't know. So I think that's one of the things as an entrepreneur, you have to be vigilant and be on the watch out and always try to look for ways to improve, to grow, and to stay relevant. Tell us a little bit about RSS Hydro. What problem do you solve and for who?
Well, you already started with a very nice introduction, so I can add on to this. So it's in the name. We look into hydrological extremes, hydrology, so water issues, but we focus a lot on the wet part of the extremes. So looking at flooding, at inundation, flooding, cyclones, and how they impact society and how they impact cities, people. And so we operate a lot in disasters. So when there's a disaster, when there's a flood disaster, we operate in that and we try to use as best as we can innovation in geospatial data, so image data very often, but also use modeling. So we try to build scenarios to help people understand how they can better protect themselves, be better prepared, and become more resilient for the next disaster and in the future. So also build more resilient and sustainable cities, for example, that can cope much better with flooding. And we operate on the assumption that we can offer solutions that can be deployed globally. So it doesn't matter to us. Well, it matters to us always, but it doesn't matter to us whether we need to solve or help solve a problem in Mozambique or Texas or Luxembourg. We will try to do our best so that our solutions can help all cases, no matter how hard people are hit or how little comparatively, right? So we always try to come up also with solutions that are sustainable and that always sit at the forefront of the advancement in technology. So that's why we say actually our vision or mission is like we innovate geospatial and modeling intelligence to get better at managing disasters for now and in the future.
Do I understand correctly then from what you have described? Because I think your company and your solution is best then in the humanitarian sector. For example, especially detecting right before disasters happen. Have you already started applying your solution to disaster risk reduction in the humanitarian sector?
Yeah, so it's a very relevant question because actually that's one we're not trying to solve, but we're trying to solve the way we think about this, right? Because the humanitarian sector is one sector, and then that deal a lot with disasters and need a lot of solutions. And a lot of the solutions they currently have are not always working for every type of, let's say, flood disaster where we can really help. So that's why very often, although people think, maybe humanitarian are having a different mission than getting innovative technologies, they have a mission to save people, to look at the humanitarian aspect when there's a disaster. So first is to deploy people to look how they can assist with medicine or food, with shelter when there's a disaster. But people don't think of the humanitarian sector as being the one that would use most innovative techniques, but it's actually the one that needs those most innovations because they need to respond usually in areas where it's very difficult to get good data. They need to operate very fast. They need to deploy very fast. They don't have a lot of resources to bring in new tech. So they look for people that can innovate, also innovate solutions that may be more affordable, or sometimes they also look at solutions that are more open access, open source. So it's kind of free, but of course nothing is free. So there's then the other angle where if we want to do that, and it's a sector we're very interested in, it's a sector we help a lot. For example, I'm consulting with my name to the UN World Food Programme to help in flood disasters and help countries build a better strategy or have better technology to help respond better for the next flood. And then we also, as a company, help on a voluntary basis Médecins Sans Frontières, so Doctors Without Borders, when they have these mapathons that they want to map, to have better maps of the world, that they know where and how to deploy people best, knowing where roads really are, knowing where villages really are. It's not always easy, and some maps that exist may be out of date. So they need really good maps all the time, and they have these mapathons that we as a company, we volunteer to help out, which means we go there, we teach people that map, how to do this, but we don't get paid. But on the other hand, what we also do in the company, we do a lot of R&D. You mentioned that we are a research institute in the private sector. That is correct. We are recognized by the Ministry of Economy in Luxembourg as a research center operating in the private sector. So what that means is that we have the ability to do research and also host PhDs and PhD students and postdocs together with universities. We can do that. We have the ability to supervise those people. But also it means it gives us a lot of flexibility to do projects, to do really cool, innovative projects. And that's when working with the humanitarian sector can be very useful, because they usually join us on these projects to tell us what they need, what they require in terms of technology, and we then develop with them, hoping that in the end, of course, we can make money out of the solutions. But our idea would be to ask maybe other sectors to pay for that technology so we can offer them at more affordable prices or even for free for some humanitarian disasters, because some of these disasters are really so devastating, so big, and everybody's money is going down. So donations are going down, they're not going up. So it's probably not a sector we want to say, okay, if you want our map to help you respond better, you need to pay $1 million. That's not our goal. Ideally, we would love to give that map for free, but then somebody else would need to put some money on the table and we need to go in contract with someone else, which may come from a sector that can actually afford it, but can still equally use the value of that map as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think the humanitarian sector in particular needs so much of innovation as well as cost cutting,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Maybe in the short term, it comes at a higher cost to innovate and find the solutions, the technology that really works. But then I think in the long run, it can save so many lives as well as it can save a lot of money. I wanted to ask you, what are the major differences between working on R&D project versus having paying customers?
So if I have to give you a very, very, very short and clear answer,
Yes, please.
working on R&D projects is cooler, but the
Okay.
paying customer is way cooler. So what I mean is that, we get very excited when we have a new research project. We get really excited, and it actually helps a lot paying salaries because it's all you do is basically people's times on those projects. But it's something you can't make a profit of, right? You can't take the research money and say, okay, well, actually, I can do this project now for half the money. Thanks very much for the other half that goes to profit. That is something you cannot do, and that would be very unethical because you say for these tasks to lead to the solution, I need this many hours of work, and here are my experts, and then you have the budget, and that's the budget you get. So it's a very strict process, and you need to get to milestones. You need to reach them throughout the project, and then if the milestones are approved by the funding body and by their technical team, you get paid, for the work you did. But so it's not something you can say, okay, it's very profitable. It's actually not at all. It becomes profitable only if you can manage to sell what you've developed and make it into a commercial product or service. And then you trigger the paying customer, which hopefully would pay more because you have a more innovative service or product. So that's exactly what we try to do. But it's easier said than done because the gap between a finished research project and a paying customer is still large. It's like a valley of death because you have something that you research that's very innovative. Innovation also means very new. It's new, it's novel, it may be not known by the sector that's wanting to pay for something like that. So we also have to make sure that the ones we want to sell this to eventually are ideally on the project as a stakeholder, as somebody not getting paid by the project, but as somebody that can give our team that is developing this can give the requirements and needs they need in the solution so we can integrate that. And then all the way we are with those partners that we say, okay, this is now our solution. How does it look to you? And then they start to say, okay, well, that's not exactly what we needed. Then we can go back in the project, fix it, change it. And hopefully at the end of all this, everybody's happy. It's a win-win-win. So the funding body is happy because they got what we said we would do. We're very happy because we got more of an innovative solution, and eventually we have the paying customer. And the paying customer is more happy than before happier than before because they actually got the solution they were looking for in the first place that was missing in the market. So that is what I have described now. It's an ideal situation of an R&D project going into commercial world. I think so far we've done many research projects. I have done many research projects in my life, also way before I founded this company. And I can tell you only a very minute percentage of research projects make it into that service commercial world. Because a lot of these, when you are in academia, you don't look for a paying customer because you're in academia, you do fundamental research. Now here at RSS Hydro, we don't do fundamental research. We can be involved in some of those projects, but then we have very limited budget because we're not supposed to act, at least in Europe not. We're not supposed to act like a university or research technology organization, like in Luxembourg, for example, the list. We are not supposed to take their place, and we also should not, probably. So we are doing applied research projects. Where applied means we do the R&D to turn it into something that can be put in the market for selling. So it's very different. But it's very hard to make that work.
And can you give us examples of clients or customers that you're working with? Maybe illustrations from R&D projects, like what are a couple examples of institutions you are collaborating with? And then if you have any paying customers, just to get an idea of like who would be actually buying RSS Hydro solutions.
So to answer your first question about who do we partner with? So we partner with basically two types of partners. The one type is the partner we do need because we do need a technical solution that we may not have in the project. So they develop it for us. Or we partner with the university or a research technology organization because they have people with expertise that we also need. So then we also have a part of the project budget that goes to them to co-develop something. So this is called a consortium. And we usually do that every project, whether it's fundamental research or applied research. They have this. It's hardly possible to do a research project by yourself. You always need partners that actually do help you to do the work technically. But then the other type of partners in the consortium are those that I explained to you before, are the stakeholders eventually that would like to see the product. And this sector is usually the humanitarian sector we work with, and then insurance, reinsurance, or cities, for example, the public sector, not the government, but municipalities that maybe get hard hit by floods and want to have a solution. They can also join us in research projects to say, we actually want to see X, Y, or whatever in a product, and it's not available right now, or at least they think it's not available. And then we would try to develop that into our service or product we are developing in the project. And that is what we do. So it depends really on the project, but we typically try to cater to humanitarian, public, and insurance, reinsurance. So that also explains to you the paying customer.
Yeah.
So for now, we decided, like I said before, the humanitarian sector should not be, in our view, the first one necessarily paying. Right? The first one paying should maybe be municipalities, cities, or reinsurance, insurance, those that really also can have a particular need for the service or product, and then they pay for this because they implement it very quickly and they need it in full.
Ideally, yeah, as you said, it would be great to find those with the money who can carry the burden, the financial burden.
Absolutely.
I think most of us do know university spin-offs or familiar with university spin-offs where researchers, academics decide to commercialize their technological inventions. In your case, your company, RSS Hydro, is more of a personal spin-off based on your personal experience in research and academia. Why did you start research-focused? Why did you start? No, this is, I think, a logical question. Why did you start research-focused? You already understand my question.
I was hoping you didn't ask that question because in a way, the answer is in a way I wish I didn't.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, tell us more. Because, just so our listeners understand what I'm asking, right? I'm curious, why did you start R&D-focused company instead of like a regular company, or instead of just continuing your research career, which has been very extensive and rich? So yes, go ahead.
So I started the company with a very strong R&D pillar, research pillar, because that's what I can do. So that's also why initially I was saying hope, because we're still hoping that the great R&D things we do in our roadmap actually lead to the one unique product that we can actually get a lot of money for. So that is the hope part, right? So not that people get me wrong when I say, okay, this guy is nuts because he said, entrepreneurship is just hoping. But for me, it is because we're still in that thing where we say, we hope that I didn't do it incorrectly, because we are not a typical business in the private sector. We are a for-profit company, but we're having a lot of R&D projects that are not for profit, not for profit making. But eventually we hope that this will give us the innovation we need, because actually, let's be honest, if we look at it, so I did it because that's what I can do. I am very good at, I would say, is not wrong. I mean, this didn't sound modest now, but I am very good at getting R&D proposals successfully funded. And that's because I have spent almost 20 years before I started RSS Hydro on my own salary, just on research projects. Whether this was in academia or in the private sector later in the US, I was always on soft salary research money from grants. And so I had to be successful, otherwise that wouldn't have paid my salary. So I did that choice because I like the research projects. I like the proposal writing. I like the success of getting it. And then also leading a consortium or being part of a consortium. I love that. But it's not forever, because it's kind of a tiring process. And if you stay in academia, you just stay with academics. They're all the same. So it's much more exciting if you try to pull that into the private sector. Private sector is much more interesting. It's very volatile. It's like one day to the next is so different, because you may get a customer, you may lose a customer. You may get success, you may not get success. That can vary day to day. I like the risk as well. So that's why I thought, okay, let's try to do this in the private sector. But then in the private sector, you need to sell. So my idea was to construct a very strong research pillar in the company, get accreditation from the Luxembourg government that we can operate with students, with research money, with postdocs, with PhDs. And we do that. But then let's also try to use that innovation and put it into the commercial pillar, which is the one making profit on sales. The first few years of RSS Hydro, our revenue was mostly coming from the R&D pillar. And in the commercial pillar, we were doing a lot of consulting, one at a time contracts, very small contracts, but not sure if they would come back. But we would take this consulting contract as they came along, because that's like more the fast money, if you like, compared to the R&D, which is very often 2 years. And then you get only paid if you reach a certain milestone. In a consulting contract, you do the work, you get paid, right? And the work is a lot smaller. So we did that, and now we are in the stage where we recognize, okay, we need to push much more on this selling roadmap, where we say, okay, put the R&D innovation into the commercial roadmap, but we need to make that process a lot faster now. So to bridge that gap between R&D results and selling, because actually also our customers that are with us on these projects, they want to see something that they can actually buy, which is fantastic, but we need to move faster.
Indeed. I mean, I think you have such a competitive advantage because you have this very strong focus on R&D, and you can apply the latest cutting edge research into building a solution that can be very competitive in the market. But yeah, it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah, because sometimes we have the pressure is on, right? Thing. Because
I think it's always on.
let's say, I don't want to put any names here, but let's say if a big reinsurance company joins us on these R&D projects, for them, nothing is commercially binding, is not legally binding, nor commercial binding that they join us on these R&D, because they're not getting any money, and they are still committing a lot of efforts helping us understand how they want the solution. Now, if they're really eager and they really see the benefit of the solution we're about to develop, they don't want to hang around for 2 to 3 years to use it. So that's what we mean. That's what I mean when I say the pressure is on, because actually, if you have these potential customers, you think, oh, that's fantastic. But then we also better deliver in that innovation part, because otherwise we damage that relationship. And that's something we want to absolutely avoid, because they also see us exactly like you say. I think they see us as we can innovate. And that's why they go with us in these projects. But then we shouldn't disappoint in the end, because it is potentially a paying customer. And the one thing is true is customer is king, right? So if we start disappointing a customer because we didn't innovate, or we didn't manage expectations, that maybe we can only innovate to some aspects, but that it's okay if you can manage expectations. If you cannot do that, it may be a lot of damage to us, because you damage the reputation and then you damage the potential contracts or whatever. So that's why we say the pressure is on. So I'm not recommending people to start this type of business unless they're prepared to get ready for a bumpy ride with a lot of risk. But the only thing I can say is very exciting, because we are pushing at the forefront of technology with partners like, we are in programs with NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, and other big companies, right? So I can mention this here because actually we are not leaving anybody out, because we are partnering in startup programs with all of those big companies, because they are developing technology that is pushing the boundaries. So we stay with them, but you see the size difference. But in R&D projects, size difference doesn't matter, because it's kind of the innovation you can bring to the table. And their business size is irrelevant.
Sometimes I hear entrepreneurs say that actually having a lot of money is not good for innovation. The less your budget is, the more innovative you become, because you have to make things work with small budgets.
It's the pressure is on thing, right? If you push a human being against the wall and you have no more choice, you become very innovative, very fast. And usually that's when it works, because you have no other choice. So that's when I say the pressure is on, because if you have a paying customer that wants this solution, but it needs it to work, but there's a lot at stake, then it works. I agree. Money is not the thing that make it work. It's the pressure. But too much pressure, you can collapse under a lot of pressure. So you just need to be ready to take it, I think.
No, indeed. There are some people who work really well under pressure, but I think a lot of pressure on an ongoing basis can be also detrimental.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, maybe slightly moving to a different topic. As I have touched upon when introducing you, you have extensive experience also living, working in the United States. And this is, I think, the place to be, right? When you are building a startup, a company, despite having experience, living experience, as well as network in US, you decided to build your company in Luxembourg. Can you share what were some of the advantages and disadvantages of setting up RSS Hydro in Luxembourg?
Okay. My choice to do that is actually personal, because it's more family related, coming back home to raise a family. So the advantages is that you can easier bring personal and business life together, which is crucial. I think you should have them in the same location, or at least try to have them in the same location or not too far apart, because the one is important. Personal life, family life can be a very good pillar to lean on. If you can do that, that's really fantastic. So that was one of the reasons to move. And then advantages in Luxembourg. I mean, some government programs we have for startups are absolutely amazing. From the government support, and institutions in Luxembourg like Lux Innovation are unique in the world. You can really trigger an organization to help you out, to bridge the gap between private sector and funding mechanisms in the government without actually needing to pay them one penny. It's Lux Innovation. You can call them to say, I need to build a business plan. They will send you a template of a business plan. They will have people that talk to you about how to make a business plan. You don't need to spend any money on them. Right? This is real and this is unique. I've not seen that in any other country. The very negative thing about Luxembourg and business, and this is not just Luxembourg, it's Europe. I can tell you one thing, and this is true. When you are in government programs, or when you are in R&D programs, or when you are in other public funded programs, or even private sector in Europe, we are very, very slow, very, very sleepy. It's like, take right now, this month, in August, no one is working. No one. I mean, yeah, everybody's working, but actually no institution is working. People may be working behind the scenes, to keep the business going. But actually in August, nobody's working. Try send an email to somebody 4 p.m. Friday. Whether it's private sector or public sector, doesn't matter. You will not get a response. If you get a response, it will be a grumpy one. So cash flow is slow. And actually, if you are a startup, cash flow is gold. And cash is the only thing that matters, actually. You don't have cash, you have nothing. In the US, the disadvantages are numerous. I don't need to go into that. But the advantages as a startup is cash is really fast. Investors are really fast. You can get very quick money with some small efforts. And also people are still working in August. You get a response, you get something, because everybody is just on that competitive edge where they go like, okay, I need to make it because otherwise somebody else is going to take it. So that's the real disadvantage. The pressure, as we talked before, in the US is enormous. It literally is killing sometimes for people, right? Because it's too much. So that's the disadvantage. But the advantage is because of that, you have this enormous competition. And also investors in the US are more willing to give you a bit more money for the risk taking than in Europe. But the big advantage is in Europe, the social system, let's call it like this, looks after you as a person a lot better. But it makes everything go slow. For a startup, you want to be fast. You want to be seeing the cash fast. Nobody's paying any invoice in August. No one. Why?
Yeah.
Because you may get in touch with people, but they tell you, yeah, but our administration, nobody's there. Come back in September.
I guess it really depends what your priorities are. Based on the conversations I had also with people who've spent some time in Silicon Valley, is I think if you are really driven by building a startup, really fail fast or succeed fast, like you are able to take the time off, take the kind of not care so much maybe about your personal life, right? And you just want to build a tech-based company, maybe US is a great way to really, within a couple of years, to really get the ground running and have access to a lot of expertise, a lot of financial resources. Yeah. But then if you are someone who wants to take things slow and maybe grow a smaller company with less ambition, maybe so you can enjoy greater personal life, then maybe Europe is the winner there. We are reaching the end of our conversation, but I wanted to ask two other questions. One, if there are any researchers listening to this episode, why should they consider starting a business and commercialize their technological inventions?
There are two main reasons, I think. One is, I take the money first. One is a money question. In the private sector, you can make more money eventually than in academia, a lot more. So some people in academia, and most people would agree with me that it's not a very good paid job. It's not a well-paid job. If you are a full professor with the experience you have in the private sector, in the right company, you get paid a lot more money. So a lot of people that stay in academia stay there because that's what they want to do. But if you feel that your research is worth a lot more and you're not getting the money you think you deserve, if you're more like that kind of person, just take the risk and take your research into the private sector. I think we also see a lot of people now doing this. And there's a lot of people highly qualified with PhDs that want to try the private sector. It's because of that. The second reason, and I hope that is probably the reason why most people want to switch, is not necessarily the money question, but it becomes very important also. The second thing is that if you want your research to have very fast and very high impact to society or to a real problem, The private sector can do that faster because you are in touch with the actual client or with the actual paying entity that wants to implement your solution. In academia, like I said before, you do fundamental research. It doesn't reach very quickly the impact level that you can reach in the private sector. So that's also why I think researchers that are in academia, but they want to see either make the money fast or make the impact faster, they should think about switching to a business.
Great. Thank you so much for that piece of advice. And the last question is a guest question. They left this question without knowing who they're leaving it for.
Great.
The question reads, do you have an exit plan? Some people say you should start with an exit plan in mind when you build a startup.
Yeah, so I have a selfish exit plan. A selfish exit plan is working for me, but not for everybody else involved in RSS Hydro. If I look for an exit plan of everybody involved in RSS Hydro, yeah, I think the exit plan is probably everybody is trying when you want to exit, you just sell. Just sell the whole thing. That's an exit, but therefore you need to protect yourself and also everybody with you to make sure you're not just selling to someone that would just take RSS Hydro for the products but not care about people. So you need to be a bit more protective there. But selfish exit, yeah, I mean, I've shown to myself that I can make it also as a freelance. So I am also a business owner, but I'm also a freelance person because I do consult to the UN, United Nations, and I do consult also to others on my personal name. I know I can make it there. So my exit strategy has always been like, okay, fold it up and go full freelance because I would still do the same work, but maybe not develop solutions, but maybe do more like a person think tank, just like say, okay, somebody has an issue with a flood, I can connect or I can tell you where to get things that will work for you. And that's what I do on the side as well, a little bit now still. But I think that's always been my exit strategy, is to fold up and maybe then join the humanitarian sector.
It's good to have a plan than not have a plan. So I hope everything works out at RSS Hydro and you manage to achieve your ambitions, especially, first of all, contribute to the humanitarian sector. As we've discussed, I think that is an area where we need a lot of resources, a lot of innovation, a lot of solutions to be able to save the humanity as well as to save the planet. And I do hope, because you have such a mission at the core of the company, that you also find private companies, private institutions that would be also interested in investing or becoming paying customers. That would be a nice way to see RSS Hydro grow and expand its impact worldwide. And thank you, Guy, for taking the time to come on the Inside Story podcast and for sharing your entrepreneurial journey. And I think today what you have demonstrated through your experience is how important it is to bridge the gap between academia and the private sector. And there are so many benefits, as you have pointed out. And unfortunately, the two sectors sometimes work in silos. And thanks to organizations and companies like yours, hopefully we will see more collaboration as well as more innovation and technology coming out because of this collaboration of academia and the private sector. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.